Hey guys, it is Chad here from the Battle Warrior Podcast, and I'm just letting all you listeners know that the Battle Warrior Podcast episodes will be available across all podcast platforms, guys. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this brand new episode today. Hey guys, welcome to the Battle Warrior Podcast. We're laughing already, guys. Host and I have been fighting for 3-4 weeks trying to get this situated. It's like I would lose the email, and I'm like, okay, now I'll take the blame for a lot of it, guys, because we're both pretty busy, and it just sometimes stuff gets sent through the cracks on an accident. But hey man, Gareth Nock is on the line here, man. He's a phenomenal brother. Look at his business. He is helping, I wouldn't say adults, but it looks like parents, people, one-on-one coaching. Man, you have a phenomenal platform going on your side of it here. I'd rather have you brag about it more than me, because I'd rather have it coming from the host just because, or from the guest, because you're around it every day. But like I said, we can go through the normal topics and all that stuff. I don't even want to say that because I want to tap into what day-to-day lives are, because what happens is, and there was a repeated pattern through my life lately, is when you love what you do and you're on that passion, that the drive of what it is. I don't suggest doing it, but you can go 22 hours without sleep, wake up the next morning at 4 a.m, go do a show, then finally crash after the show. You just keep going and going and going and going. Is that the same pattern that you currently have?
Yeah, for sure. And we just touched on that a little bit, and it definitely is, and it's something I learned that really stuck with me. And my coach and kind of business mentor put this to me, and we had this conversation about kind of burnout and managing anxiety, and how do you do that when you've got all these things going on? And she just said, look, you need to remember this important thing, and it's you can when you love what you do and you can do what you love and be passionate about it and it can fulfill you on so many levels, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And that was huge for me. And I was like, oh, because I think I was trying to find this place where I'm like, well, if I love it and it's my why and it's my thing, why am I finding it so hard? She's like, it's not meant to be easy just because you love it. And that really resonated with me. And it's helped me come back to that kind of place of grounding when I'm looking at the day. And that cycle of trying to get to that next thing that needs to be done. And there's always things pulling you in other directions. And that's really helped me to understand that it's okay to struggle through it, even if you love it.
The thing that where my mind was going to, when you were talking about the anxiety, and mind you, I have my own, and there's days I'm super calm where I'm like, all right, man, let's just get through it. It is what it is today. Let's run, like crank the music, crank the podcast, and just go to town. You get so hyper focused and you just check everything off the list. You get so task driven. And then there's days where everything can go wrong. And I'm self-talking myself here, but like, you feel like you're failing, but everyone's like, bro, like everything's huge. And you're like, but you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And then you have like a situation where I'm at right now where you're training for a marathon. So like, and I'm gonna give a little background here. I work out in the gym a couple days a week on top of training for a marathon, which is 8 weeks from now. What I'm starting to notice is usually I have happy pills to get me prior to marathon training. So in general, like through the last 5 years, I've been on happy pills. I'm actually been more too calm, which means my body's releasing endorphins to actually combat my happy pill.
Wow.
So I'm like, am I just figuring something out that's brilliant?
It could well be. It could well be. Um, that's really fascinating that you've it, that you're, like you said, too calm. And is that maybe almost like the laid back? Like I find myself being one or the other, like end of the scale, right? Like it's really laid back and just, yeah, this is going to get done. It's going to be in that process. But I get what you mean, right? Sometimes I have to kick myself up the arse. I'm like, you need to get moving. Like, you need to take action. When you take that action, you're going to feel motivated. You feel motivated, you're going to keep pushing through all these tasks that need to be done. So that's really interesting that, to my earlier point is that maybe if we were cruising through our passion, are we going to get stuck in that like spot where, like we all do, and I do this all the time, I'm like, great, my business is running, it's summer, I'm at home with my daughter, I'm like, maybe I'll just sit back and it'll just figure itself out for the next month. But really, a couple of days of that, and then the anxiety sets in, and I'm like, all right, I got to make some money, I got to sell some memberships, I need to get people coming in the door, and I need that. And it's interesting that, mentally and emotionally and physically, we're driven by that pressure. Maybe I don't know if that's the right word, but kind of driven by that pressure to keep moving forward, or driven by the exercise or the goal, or that need to get going with the marathon. So it's that's gonna marinate around my brain. I might not sleep very well tonight thinking about that.
Well, there's prime examples of a few things, and like I said, I'm in show season right now, so you're buying inventory for shows. You go to shows thinking you're pre-prepared. You're like, hey, I got all these t-shirts ready to go. Hey, I got all these supplements. And I'm gonna use my prime thickened example. I'm gonna use this for example because I went through this headspace last week. Hey, I want to go sell. I'm a fitness-based company. I want to go sell t-shirts because I had some come in, people feel great about it, and and laid them out on the platform, laid them on the table, put them up in the booth. First and foremost, I arrived at the show not knowing where the vendors are. And then I get there, it's State Farm, which is an insurance company. And then I go to the people, I'm like, where's my booth? As an example, they're like, you're that square next to the starting line. I'm like, I'm what? They're like, you're on the gravel pad right next to State Farm, right next to the starting line. I'm like, here we go. Put it up, whatever, and made 30, 40, 50 samples of fitness supplements or whatever it is. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay. Traditionally in the fitness world, people talk about supplements. They take 20 minutes, 30 minutes, come on up. Hey man, what does this do? Whatever. What I learned through this is nobody gave a shit about t-shirts. I could not, even with friends, because I ran the race too, and I had some friends that jumped in and they were hurt. So they're like, I'll run the booth for you, whatever. They couldn't keep up. I had my own sample stuff behind them. They're like, where's all your baggies? Where's all this? Where's this? I ran out of labels. I ran out of bags. I ran out of supplements. And I'm like, I could never estimate that. And they go, the funny thing is they come up and talk. Then they ran the race. You run the race. They leave. You leave. They come back and they see the girls and they don't see you, but yet they come up and grab everything and chit chat thinking like we're part of the family.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you like in my mind, I'm like, how did I mess up on that one? Not mess up. Like it's a great learning experience, but I'm like, someone told me a long time ago, they're like, when you're supposed to be in the right place at the right time, stuff like that, you'd be comfortable. I was comfortable, but through the last 2-3 months building up to that, I'm like, oh, I'm just a kid with a fitness based company or a fitness supplement company. I'm like, I'm not the Red Cons, I'm not the First Forms. I'm just going through American brands here. And all of a sudden I get there, I'm like, what I noticed through the show, and the same thing you're probably noticing with a lot of your customers, they know you're the owner. They want to walk up, they want to say hello. You still have that one-on-one connection. And I think the closeness of the people of getting to the person that's running the company just brings people back. And it was a lot of the questions of, are you local? How are you bringing it local here? Who's the store? And I was 4 hours from home, but where I was like a second home to me. So I know that city very, very well. And it was, how do we get this up here? How do we get it at the local stores? How do we do this? And I'm like, well, I guess I got thrown in the fire now.
Yeah. Well, and so true. Like I'm a big believer in sometimes you just gotta, if you're on that right path, and we spoke about passion and that kind of persevering through stuff when it's challenging, even though you're on the right path, and then the universe just opens up a door, right? Or like whatever you refer to it as, right? I'm going to call it the universe. Everyone's different in their beliefs, but there's something to be said that when you're going on the right path, and I'm much like that with business right now, is I feel like I'm on the right path, the direction's correct, we're listening to what people want, and the growth is slow, continuous, but slow. And that's something that I've been working on, kind of just me being anxious and, the same thing, right? Like you want to be prepared, you want to get a good idea of what's coming up. But sometimes you just got to say, I'm going to keep on this path. I think I'm making the right decisions based on what I'm hearing and what I'm witnessing. And eventually the universe is going to open up some other, more opportunities or open up the floodgates on what we're doing. And something's just going to click with, and create that bigger growth that I think everyone's looking for. And, although business is good, is it, could there be more? Yeah, always, right? That's the life of being an entrepreneur and running a business. But it's definitely a lot to be said for that. Be in the right place. Just keep trying stuff, right? Because it isn't always like we've tried loads of things. We're trying to get new people in and bring people into the business and, is this the right decision? Is this the right place to market? And you just got to keep doing it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And, there's no real failure, right? Just feedback on whether things are working. And if you're going in the right direction, things open up eventually.
Yeah. And the thing that I'm learning is what usually happens is completely opposite of what you think in your head. Secondly, stuff like that where I should look back and analyze. I'm not an analyzer, man. I just write shit down and go figure it out. That's just who I am and what I am. The connection of the real people of doing the old school way of taking a physical booth out to the people is a lost art that, and I don't know, where you currently live right now, but in the United States, it's still pretty digital now. And a lot of instant messaging, a lot of, just reach of the online texting, phone calling, Zooms, or whatever. But the physical nature of being in front of people, of where someone can walk up, physically feel your product, see it, touch it, have fun with the vibe. Because dude, literally, I could reach through my booth and touch the starting line. That's how close I was. Like people were walking behind my booth to the starting line. And the guy in the starting line was sitting back there playing music and jamming and stuff. All of a sudden, he whipped out like Soldier Boy and all these goofy dance songs and stuff. And all of a sudden, like everyone in the whole area started dancing. I'm like, wow, like just looking at the memory of that, I'm like, I got very lucky in that situation.
Yeah, that's a sweet spot. And you know what? It's funny. I'm just sitting here thinking I've been organizing an event. And look, we're a full digital business, and
Yeah.
this is a sweet kind of balance that we're trying to find where you also need that community support, right? And getting out in front of the people. And we've been trying to do a few events. Some have been okay, some have been a complete washout. But I was just organizing an event where we're going to be doing some warm-ups for a charity run, having a booth, and it's literally going to be like finish line as people cross over. And in my head, I'm thinking maybe this is the sweet. It sounds like you're onto something with that. So hopefully this will be the sweet spot in September, and we'll get a heap of people in. But yeah, it's tricky because you want to lean on that, like the digital side of it, because it's a digital business. But to paint a picture for people listening, an online fitness app or platform, there's 375,000 of them worldwide right now. Like I'm one app, one platform. Like it is almost, I'm not going to say it's impossible to reach people because we do reach them, but it's really, really, really hard to reach the people that you want to reach when you're, and it's so much noise around what you do. And, I can definitely speak to that. Getting connected, being with people and trying to build that community support is what we think is going to be that thing that changes the game a little bit, like moving into the back end of the year. So.
Yeah. And I was going to say it's the old school stuff that got lost in the last 5 years, 10 years. And I'm assuming you're probably in your late 20s, early 30s. I could be completely wrong. If you're older than that, man, say thank you. But
late 40. So yeah, I'll take it though.
the thing I'm looking at is I'm 36. So, and sometimes I say I'm 35 just because I completely forgot I'm in the odd year now, or the even year. But the way I look at it is we grew up still going out making a mess with the community, like going out to the parks, parents saying go get dirty, go play, whatever the verb or the term was at that time. In camping shows, fishing shows, and all those shows were all big back in the day because we didn't have YouTubes. We didn't have, I mean, we had the news stations with the channels and stuff, the fishing channels, camping channel, whatever, like the basic stuff of it. But the traffic going to those shows now, people rather stay home and go sit on YouTube or Netflix or whatever it is. So there's so much business, like, and I'm not even looking at the negativity of the numbers dropping. I'm looking at it, I'm like, there's your customers right in front of you. And now you can take the time and meet them face to face, see the emotion and all that stuff. So still mixing a lot of that old school with the new school.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really important point. And I grew up in the 80s, so I get it. It was, the internet came around as a teenager for me. So, all that stuff is new. And here's the thing, like I'm year and a half into an online platform and building a business that kind of suited with where I was at. But 20, so what's that, a year and a half? So just over 20 years, everything I did was in person. So every connection, every conversation, building a business was very different because you just turned up. I was on the gym floor, whether it was one-on-one or group, and people just saw it. They came, they connected with what you did, they heard what you said, they listened because they constantly had that, right? Closed platform we run online. No one sees what we do until they're there. And it's really hard to manipulate that and tell that story. And that's something that we're learning. It's been a big challenge for me, as a kind of day-to-day operations, is how do you get that message out there? And that's probably much for many digital companies, I'd imagine, not just fitness, but because fitness and, the things we're talking about are so much about those conversations, right? And about that connection with people and that constant messaging that people get from just seeing it. And I've never marketed, like I went into a brand new business, and although I know what I'm doing as a coach, I'd never marketed myself because I didn't really need to. I just turned up and did it, and people came, and it was a very different model. And that makes it really hard because it makes you feel like as a business owner that you're failing because there's not the uptake that maybe maybe it's all based on expectation, but the expectation that there'll be this massive uptake because of what you've done previously. And although technically you're coaching the same thing, it's a very different approach that's needed.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm noticing too, especially trying to start the fire. See, like back in the day when I was a rep for certain companies out in the let's just say country community, you had to go face to face, you had to go to the shows, you had to do this stuff. And the thing that I'm looking at is now what I love between the old school build and new school build is seeing when that the fire goes in someone's eyes, like when it builds up and all of a sudden it, like you're sitting here like, okay, hey, I'm hiding this idea, or hey, what do you think of this? And all of a sudden, like, boom, the fire turns on. They're like, oh my God, where the heck did that come from? Like, and you've probably been in that situation where everyone's like, where did that come from? And you're like, no, I was just kind of a shoot from the hip or whatever it is. And all of a sudden now it's like, okay, you got something cool here. How do you brand it? How do you build it? How do you get it out? Okay, so it's still part of your brand. Okay, so now how do you branch that off of your brand? And now how do we make this in part of the message? And something so simple now has become, people are like, and we're just going to use this for example, like I just made this design and I'm like, 3 words that were in it that made me happy. And all of a sudden I made a post on Facebook and say, okay, hey guys, I'm taking all, my time and focus, my energies on my business, but these are some of the new designs that I'm trying to implement or just bring out that were in my head. And the one where I thought wouldn't get anything, everyone was like, we want this, we want this, we want this. I'm like, what? Like in my mind, like, why? and now that is, like I said, even though we are a fitness-based company, that curveball has now been more absorbed with the people that either they do work out, but or even the ones that don't even care about working out. That message now absorbed is like, okay, hey, we went through a dark path. The message of what you're saying is matching with mental health, but yes, now we're getting healthy by ourselves. Now we can venture into fitness. So it's really weird how something so simple can just start a fire.
Yeah, and that talks back to what we said about we have to kind of, I guess, look at the failures, quote unquote, that that lead us in the right direction and seeing those as feedback. And I talk about that a lot in coaching, right, to my clients, that we're not failing at something, we're trying something. The only way we gather data is by trying to see if something works. But for some reason, when it's business and it's me, it's so hard to see that, right? Because I don't see that. I see as, we launched a product back in March and it completely flopped, like no interest. And that was that initial thing, is like, it's failure, right? And then you're failing at something. And I'll paint the picture clear so everyone understands. So we launched a personal training product, and we predominantly focus on small group based work. That's kind of where my speciality is. Same with my wife. And we kind of run the business together. So we're like, let's target this market. These are our people. And then I was like, well, these people are going to want more. So there needs to be an opportunity with some higher ticket stuff. So we launched this product, totally flopped. And then I sat on it for a couple of months. And then I was like, right, well, let's figure out why. Like, it's not because of what we're doing. It's not because we're not good at what we do. So we kind of analyzed it and we assessed that people weren't looking for that. And when we asked the question, it was because the level of the coaching they were already getting, they didn't feel that that was going to enhance them much beyond where they were. So that was a great compliment. And I was like, oh, this is great feedback. We do a really good job at this. However, we're going to struggle to sell a high ticket for something that offers this maybe not as big a jump as we maybe thought it was going to be from group-based training to group. Is this a really small? So unless someone's maybe performance-based or looking for something very specific in their training. So then we asked the question, okay, great. So this is not what you want. What do you want? And, talking about the universe opening up doors, we asked people, they were like, well, what we find is that we get such good coaching. We're nailing these workouts. It's helping us be consistent. We're showing up, but we're struggling with our nutrition and our lifestyle. Is that something that is included in personal training? I'm like, well, why are we trying to sell something? And let's just create a new product. So, and I'd been procrastinating on taking a course that I was like, I don't know, it's an investment. I need to spend a lot of money, to become a nutrition coach. And I'm like, but these people are telling me this is what we want. So anyway, long story short is that I'm now 8 weeks probably into what will be about 12 to 14 weeks of study to launch this brand new product and, just create a bit more understanding and learning on my side. So there's a bit more certification behind it and then giving people what they want. And it's the same thing, right? Like you have to open your eyes and say, oh, interesting. This is what we thought people would want. However, when we actually took it as feedback and listened to what people told us, this is where we got with the end result. So fingers crossed we have a different outcome this time and it works in the direction that we think it's going to be working in.
And I'm just chuckling because I'm like, I had that same feeling where it's like you're trying to purchase all these big, the big purchases and stuff for business. You're like, oh, what if it fails? What about this? And you're like, it comes to a point where you're just like, all right, whatever, we got to do this. Swipe.
Yeah. Yeah, that was totally me. I literally was like sitting there. I had a couple of these conversations and I just went on. And I'm not a big impulse person. So I'm a big thinker, big overanalyzer. But I was sitting there. I had literally these conversations. We do some like bi-weekly Q&As for all our members where we come on and they have kind of like an ask the coach. And literally I finished it and it was all questions about lifestyle and nutrition. And I'm like, all right, this is the universe is trying to tell me something. So literally I finished it. I logged on to the company, looked up their certification, which I already kind of knew about anyway. I logged on and I was like, and then I took a deep breath. I'm like, I'm either going to dive into all this information again or I'm just going to buy it. And so I literally sent them a message because they had enrollment was like September. So I sent them a message. I'm like, I know your enrollment's in September, but I want to start now. Here's my money. I want to pay. And the next day it was done. So yeah, sometimes you just got to do it. I'm not big on that, but I'm like, if I spend more than 60 seconds thinking about it, it's going to be a different outcome. So I just need to, sometimes you just got to take the action and get on with it.
Yeah. I'm learning that process big time, especially when you're doing bulk purchases. And I was going to say as a startup company or a company that's been under for like a year and a quarter. I don't want to say like, we could laugh at saying $500 purchase is a small thing or a big thing, but when you're on a tight budget and you're on a low budget trying to get everything going, you're like, crap, here's another $800. But overall, though, it's a great learning tool just because the thing, and I wish I had the text message here, but here as my mic is falling down, it's perfect time to grab it, and then I can just edit out here. It bleeds perfect into what drives us perfect exactly what you were saying. And he goes, that's what action will do. It's amazing how far we take the leap, but when we do, we learn so much. And I was talking about the situation with the shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but yeah, no, that's the thing that my mind's like, you got to get out in public, you got to do this. And someone asked me like, dude, why you run a marathon? I'm like, because I have to. They're like, what do you mean? Because you have to. You don't have to run. I said, yeah, I don't have to run. But when people look at me as a fitness based company and the people that are in that space are doing marathons, triathlons, Ironman, whatever, like whatever those upper tiered high performance races. And I'm like, it's not I don't want to, I have to, because if I want to get into that arena or into those doors or into that situation, you have to do some of those crazy adventures.
Mm. Yeah, you really got to be in the in the thick of it, right? In whatever you do, and this, I have this conversation a lot in the world of health and fitness because and this won't surprise anyone. I'm sure it won't surprise you either. But there's a lot of talk in the social media world, particularly about the what a what a fitness coach should look like or perform like. And this is a really contentious topic. However, there's a lot of, I guess either way, right? You can feed that bias either way, whatever you believe. You believe, hey, somebody has to be in top physical condition, or they don't. But my point is, you have to have experienced it a lot of the time. So you have to have been coached. Like I've always been coached. I've had my nutrition coach, I've had fitness coach to me. And people always ask, why do you do that? Like with 20 plus years experience. I'm like, because sometimes you need to get on the end of that. Or it's something like I maybe want to incorporate more nutrition into our business. So do I know a lot about nutrition? Sure. Could I know a lot more? And could there be more that I could build out to make sure that we're delivering a quality product? Yes. So what did I do? I enrolled myself. I got in there and I've been physically practicing these things that are coming up in the course because I want to be able to coach them well. And you need to be able to do those things. So when people ask my opinion on, what should that coach, nutrition coach or fitness coach be? I'm like, they don't necessarily have to be the picture of fitness because that's different for everyone anyway. It's very subjective, but you have to have experienced it. So if you're coming into it and you haven't been coached and you haven't experienced those things and you haven't got in there, right, in the thick of it, it's going to be hard to understand what it's like to receive coaching, to be on the other end of it, which helps with us being able to empathize, being able to connect with people, understand people's struggles, right? So I think that's more important is have you experienced this journey of your own in some capacity and can you use that to leverage it? And that's way more important because, and I'm sure people will laugh hearing this, but you can look incredible and know absolutely nothing about getting someone else in shape, right? Like it's so subjective as to how you got there. And that journey, because some people are genetically gifted as others might not be, but they might be going through a similar journey. So it's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, no, totally get it. And for me, it's just relatability. One of the few guys that got me into fitness was a guy that was on human hormone gene replacement therapy, HG or whatever it is, HGH. And the dude was absolutely shredded, like just jacked up. But the cool thing about it is even though he had the typical gym voice, and I'm not gonna, the dude's amazing, but come on, bro, like I got a core, all the flashy shit and all that stuff, and but the cool thing about it is it didn't matter who was in that gym. If someone needed help, he'd be like, "Don't, dude, I got it. Like, I got it." Um, guy, girl, grandma, grandpa, whatever. He's like, I went through hell before. Goes, I damn near almost committed suicide. He's like, yes, I look like this. He goes, but I look like this to keep myself alive. Not, I don't look like this because, look at me. He's like, yeah. He's like, I will help everyone. That's just who I am because I have a second gift in life. So he went past a few of those layers. Yeah, he was jacked up, tatted everywhere. But for someone that's coming in clean or coming in at the beginning and seeing someone like that say, hey, dude, I'm going to take you under the wing, you don't have to do what I do, but enjoy the love of fitness.
Yeah, well, and that's a great tip for anyone, in any walk of life, right? Like you don't have to do it the way I do it, and that doesn't make you a good coach. But another great point there, in the same way that there's a lot of criticism around, and there has been, maybe not so much now, but definitely when I started 20 years ago, like it was big criticism around like the way you looked and your ability to be a coach. But it works the other way, right? Like to your example just then, is somebody can be jacked and be, you know, shredded and covered in tats, whatever it might be, and that might seem very intimidating to somebody. So you got to see it from both sides. As you might look at somebody and say that person's not motivating because maybe they're carrying a bit more body fat, but they might be an incredible coach. This person over here might be intimidating because they're jacked up. And a lot of people have this myth, especially like female clients I've had, are like, well, I'm not going to go to that trainer because that trainer's like, you know, jacked and muscly and I don't want to look like that. And I'm like, yes, but there may be a different gender to you, the different genetics, etc. But they might come to me, and thankfully they did, and I was able to help these people. But you know, because I didn't look that way, like I wasn't overly jacked, and you know, you put a uniform on top of me, I look like an average guy. So there's that there, right? So I think it's important that we don't judge a book by its cover, because that's an important thing. And I'll share a story because I think this is really important to where this is going. So people will come, and now I'm in the point in my life where people will come, and sometimes you get the opposite. So some people do come because they think I'm approachable, but other people don't because they think that I don't understand a struggle that they have without asking questions and being curious. Great trait of a coach in any capacity or any mentor is to be curious. And I always say to people, you know, when I've had that conversation is, well, do you know who I am? And do you know what I've been through? And, you know, where my challenge has been in fitness. I said, I might look the way I look and perform the way I perform now, but be curious, right? I'm being curious about them as a client. Be curious about the coach. And when a few people I've had that experience, people have dug in and asked me questions and have realized that actually I've come from this place where I grew up overweight as a kid. And I was 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight as a teenager, big struggle. And when I walked in, I struggled massively at 18 years old, having been on a weight loss journey. Like the confidence, you know, the body issues, right? The image issues where I had to look at myself and not seeing what was there, you know, and then issues with over exercising, disordered behavior around exercise, around nutrition. And when people hear that and they're like, oh, that sounds like exactly like me, right? And understanding that. So it's important that we're curious on both sides. So don't judge a book by its cover. Yes, there are some, you know, factors around fitness that people need to be aware of and they need to be able to do as a coach. But people come from not only different shapes and sizes, but people come from different backgrounds and experiences. And that's really important for us to understand.
Yeah. And I think both of us, I mean, it sounds like your background's a little bit the same as mine. I was overweight and went through a lot of trauma and all that stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like, you know, a conversation with my uncle saying, dude, you want to get a strong mindset? Yeah. He's like, get your butt in the gym, you know, in a nice way of saying it. And he's one of those that had a big business, something that I would want in my life. And it wasn't like a mad, like get your butt in the gym. It was, hey man, I know what you went through. We all went through it. You know, I'm telling this right now. If you want to combat that, he's like, the gym is going to be one of the things for you.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal.
Absolutely. And having people around you, right? Like it, and this is something I think where we go on those journeys, specifically as men, that when we start that, and this is where I was at, is I knew it was something that at the time I didn't really understand. Like, well, if I'm going to move and I'm going to exercise, I'm going to work out, is, you know, am I going to lose weight and feel better and look better? Because that's what it was kind of about at that point. However, what I found is that going through that journey for the first 10 years or so and not asking for help along the way was one of the biggest things that I think would have accelerated that my confidence, you know, beating down that imposter syndrome and building my resilience just mentally, you know, and physically by asking for help. And it's something that we don't do enough as men. Like we don't ask for help. And, you know, that comes from that, you know, place of ego or lack of confidence. So what I would say is that everybody can do with a coach. Everybody is, you know, there's plenty of people out there looking to help you and support you. And this is important for your physical health, your mental health, right? Like managing all those things that we go through. And I know that I would have been a lot further along on my journey, although I don't regret where I've been. It's taught me a lot by asking for help. And if I'd found those people and surrounded myself with those people earlier and was vulnerable enough to ask for support, especially from other men, which we typically don't do, I think it would have accelerated that. And I just hope that people listening understand that and hopefully get those people and get surrounded by those people, because it will accelerate you quicker along your journey for sure.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add into that, guys. masterminds, groups of like-minded individuals, guys or girls, whatever it is. Um, you truly do not understand the power until you're in that environment and realize that, yeah, these people may have more than what you have right now, but they also went through the path and they also are the same person as you in a very similar way, that put in the time, effort, long hours to get up where they need to get up. And they'll tell you straight out, it's like, dude, I was in your spot before. You know, you are worthy to be up here. Get your butt up here.
Yeah, yeah, that is huge as well, but that's a struggle for us, right? Like, is in any walk of life, but we've been talking a lot about being business owners and experiencing that, is that we feel like we don't belong, right, in that environment. And I'd say I felt like it quite, complete transparency. Like I felt like that just as a man in general for a lot of my life. Like I felt like I didn't belong with other people that were successful or that I deemed to be successful or, you know, more progressed in their life or better finances or better fitness or whatever it was. Like you look at those people and I struggled a lot with that and understanding that until I started to was accepted and maybe encouraged and pushed along that journey by a few people close to me. Then I realized, hey, you know what? You don't have to be. It's not all about being on the same level. It's about being able to connect, right? And that, like you said, you're going to bring somebody up to your level with something else, right? And there's always someone in that group, that peer group for me that's like, oh, I find I'm really successful in this and this, but I just can't get my nutrition in line or whatever. And then you realize, like, hold on a minute, this person now wants my support and help, and you start to, oh, so actually we don't all need to be at the same level. Like we're here to support one another, and there's always areas where you're going to be able to support people. And I've just kind of lent on that and just try to support people as much in the areas where I feel like I have a bit more knowledge or a bit more success. And you try and pull those other things from other people, and then suddenly everyone's levels elevated.
Yeah, and everyone wins together. So no, dude, we've been rolling, we've been having fun. I'm gonna end it because of Val. I don't want to keep stretching the value up, man. Like we just gave what 20, what is it here? 40
That,
minutes.
yeah, 40 minutes.
40
Yeah.
minutes of just pure amazing content. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna have you back because the reason is we didn't even tap in your like we tapped into business, but not business, not
Yeah.
not what you offer and all that stuff here. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't want to stretch us out and lose focus and that stuff because I'm like, what we talked about is just phenomenal for everyone that's trying to battle that mindset of what we go do every day. And I'm
Yeah.
like, let's just cap it and make it sweet as one episode and bring you back for another one here. So, where can all my listeners and people through the whole world find all your stuff?
So thenockacademy.com or the Nock Academy on all social media platforms is the best place to find us. And yeah, just always open to connecting. Like, I struggle with that, like that fear to reach out and connect with people. So please do. Like we are open to chat and just connect and help one another.